thanks for joining us for this Tech Talk session. We're going to be looking at the collective to collaborate to innovate and the collective superpower of cities. So I'm Sonia Geelan, I'm country manager for MasterCard in Ireland. And for those that don't know, the Ireland office is also the global HQ for MasterCard Labs, our R&D division, and also the StarPath program, which is our fintech engagement program. So from the perspective of the engagement and what we do around cities and the City Possible program, a lot of those ideas and ideation with our partners and customers happen through the labs and the StarPath program in conjunction with the City Possible team. So I'm joined by a very esteemed panel today representing Dublin, Belfast and San Jose cities. And I'll ask the guys to do a quick intro to themselves and their role within those businesses before we kind of delve into the questions that we're going to focus on for today's session. Okay, so Paul, if I can hand over.
Paul McAuliffe. I'm Lord Mayor of Dublin. I was elected that post in June of this year, so I'm straight out of the wrapping papers still. I have come from being on the City Council nearly 10 years, during which I was chair of the Economic Committee and have a real interest in the area of smart cities. And I'm really delighted to be here both with our sister city, San Jose, who we've done quite a lot with, and our partner in the Dublin Belfast Economic Monitor. But my real role today is here to take all the credit for the work that our Smart Dublin team do, led by Jamie Cudden. That's my plan.
Thanks, Paul. Mark?
Okay, my name's Mark McCann. I'm the City Innovation Programme Lead at Belfast City Council. And as you can probably tell, I'm not Deborah Colville, who was our City Innovation Manager and has unfortunately unable to attend at short notice. The Smart Belfast programme was set up 3 years ago, and it's to drive collaborative innovation across Belfast with partners in industry, public sector, and with communities.
Hi, I'm Jerry Dreesen. I'm the Assistant CIO for the City of San Jose, California. I've been in that role for 8 months. I moved from California from Minnesota, or to California from Minnesota, where I was the CIO in Minnesota's largest local government, Hennepin County. And I'm very interested in all of the innovation work that we're doing in San Jose, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Great. So for those of you that have attended other tech talks over the course of the last couple of days, I think there's kind of 3 key themes that have really stood out. And we're going to look at those and give kind of working examples of what each of the cities have done around those. So we're going to look at unlocking innovation, citizen engagement, and then partnerships. And take each one of those to give you some live examples as to what the cities are doing in that space, and potentially, obviously, for you to bring that back to your own organisations and how you could look to implement some of those processes. So through the lens of unlocking innovation, if we take that first, I think we all know transformation doesn't happen easily. It takes time. In vast majority of cases, it requires pilots to get things off the ground. So I think the first question that we'll put to the guys is, looking at that innovation piece, what have you done from a pilot or a test bed within your cities that has delivered new initiatives locally?
You want me to start?
Yeah.
So the partnerships are key, and one of the things that Silicon Valley is strongest in is the amazing collaborations we can form. I mean, Google, Apple, all the household names of technology are literally right down the street. And so in terms of partnership and public-private partnership, the first thing you start with is mutual interest. And in our case, even though we're the capital of Silicon Valley, we had some of the lowest connection speeds in our households that would contradict what you would think about Silicon Valley. So we significantly lagged other major cities in terms of connection speeds. And at the same time, we had 50,000 households, 95,000 residents who had no connectivity at all. And so our interest was to conquer that digital divide and to increase connection speeds. Of course, we signed an agreement with AT&T Mobility and Verizon, and the challenge was, how do you set up 4,100 small cells in a very short period of time? And we were able to increase our permitting speed time from, in 2017, we were doing 5 permits a year. 2018, we did about 10 a week. And then in 2019, we're doing 70 plus permits, small cell permits per week. And that, of course, is in the interest of AT&T and Verizon of getting to the 5G market as quickly as possible. And so that interest of expanding our wireless connectivity to our residents, and then their interest is time to market. And so we were able to leverage that relationship and increase our funding for the project and make it happen.
Great. Paul, maybe
Yeah,
come to
I
you
think
next.
we sort of had a citywide, went down to a test bed, and then that's brought stuff back citywide. And I think the Smart Dublin brand, we have originally had one test bed, which was Smart Docklands. And the Docklands offered us a unique opportunity because it was a strategic planning zone, so it allowed us to do things in a different way that we might have done in other parts of the city. We also had a lot of tech companies there, so there was a lot of people that was willing to take local leadership on it. And I know Michael and our team, they've worked on a number of projects. We talked about it earlier, the 5Gs and the small cells. A Dublin City Council led fibre and ducting project in that area, that now has gone to a citywide level. But we've replicated that test bed, which is focused on the Docklands, and we now have Smart DCU, Smart Sandyford, and we'll have Smart Dublin 8 as well. And each of them, you can try different things in different areas. So Dublin 8 will be focused on health because we'll have the site of the new children's hospital there. DCU is a private campus, so it allows us to do things that are outside of national legislation because that wouldn't apply on private property. And Sandyford's issue, as you may know, the big issue around mobility and connectivity. So each test bed is allowing us to do it differently. It started as one, and now we've multiple. So I think that neighbourhood of smart neighbourhoods has been an idea that's grown.
And taking the learnings of those kind of core elements and being able to replicate that into other parts of the city, and how you can.
The ducting is an example of that because we did fibre and ducting in Smart Docklands, but we haven't gone for the fibre option elsewhere because the companies weren't as keen with the fibre option. Yeah.
Okay, great. And Mark, maybe from the
I'll maybe give one example. It's very close to our hearts because it's sort of the project that proved the principle of collaborative innovation in the city and allowed us to sort of get our program up and running. And it was around the challenge of understanding literally how many businesses were in Belfast. And that's really important for us. It helps us understand the nature of the economic development opportunity in the city. It helps us develop business development services for those businesses. And rather selfishly, it helps us understand the nature of business income for city services. So if we can plot which businesses are coming into the city, it gives us a sense of for medium-term financial planning. Traditionally, it's been very difficult due to business churn. For various reasons, it's been very difficult to track which businesses are in Belfast. And it's a problem a lot of cities face. So traditionally, we would have gone maybe to a consultancy or sought out sort of one of the big four to sort of look at that problem. Instead, what we decided to do was to put it out as a challenge to local innovative companies to see where there are non-traditional ways of trying to understand where were the businesses, how we could capture details about them. And we worked with two analytics companies who used a methodology where they trawled different sources of data, whether from the web or from sort of non-obvious data sources, and then applied machine learning algorithms to compare our existing knowledge of businesses to their results. And it was a very powerful tool. It was very quick to implement, but its results were very, very impressive for the city leaders and for our councillors. And for us, it demonstrated that you could apply this obscure technology, machine learning, to a very practical problem in the city that had immediate, obvious practical consequences. The positive end of that story was that those small companies were able to, we worked with them right through the development of actual products, and they are now selling those products successfully to other cities who have obviously similar problems. And in a nutshell, it kind of proved the sort of the value of this sort of city collaboration for us. So it was a very powerful project.
Absolutely. And can I just ask, from the perspective of those innovation products, by using other partners as part of it, do you feel that that's accelerated kind of the development around some of those initiatives? Maybe, Jerry, from your perspective?
In our case, absolutely. Not only accelerated, it wouldn't have been possible without, right?
Okay.
So we got into a situation where we were lagging behind because of underinvestment in infrastructure. And then, like I said, again, so I'll add in addition to putting 4,100 small cells up. We were also putting 1,000 miles of fiber in a very short amount of time. And then what came back was, because of the partnership and the agreement we signed, we actually leveraged about $500 million of private sector investment in the city's infrastructure. And then another $4 million was invested in process improvements within the city, making us agile, not as bureaucratic, so we could stand up our small cells quicker. And then another $6 million to actually fund the expediency of the permitting process as well. So without leveraging those contracts, and of course, all we did was leverage what the city had as an asset, which is light poles, right? So, and once you start and you build, you can get there quickly if you use your leverage wisely.
And Mark, presumably the same for Belfast with the AI piece. It helps to kind of bring that to a different level in a very short space of time.
Those skills, but particularly around data analytics and things like machine learning and application of AI, are not traditional skills within city government, and they may be at once in the future. We're good at understanding what the problems are, and we're probably good at articulating what they might be. Coming up with the solutions, that's probably with the private sector, and it's probably with our universities. So for us, I think our role is bringing those three partners together to drive the solutions.
Great. So maybe if we shift the gear a little bit away from innovation and talk about citizen engagement and how important it is to have the citizens, because really the success of any smart city is going to be defined by the acceptance of the citizens in the city itself, and obviously making their lives easier through the processes that you're looking to implement. So maybe if you could talk us through some of the initiatives that you've undertaken where you've brought citizens into that process from an early stage through that, and I know everybody will have a kind of different approach and dynamic around that, and ultimately I suppose what has that meant to the city? Is it critical that they're involved from day one? Do you bring them in at different stages depending on the different projects? So maybe Paul,
it's interesting because I suppose that touches on a lot of what we discussed earlier in the session on 5G. We have to engage with citizens on this, because probably for the first time since electrification, we're actually installing physical infrastructure on our streets, and citizens are going to be aware of it in a way that they probably wouldn't have been with other rollouts, 2G and 3G and so on. So it does force that conversation. It forces all of the ethical concerns around health and about value for money and about spending and partnerships and the ethical nature of that. But I think what's really key is that you show them the benefit, that citizens feel that there's a benefit for being a smart city. And so one way we've done that is we've engaged through our community offices in the areas with community groups to try and provide free Wi-Fi in settings that will deliver benefits. And I know in my own area there's a community centre that's part of a seniors complex or a senior citizens complex, and they want free Wi-Fi so they can use the communal room more, and that they can start doing more peer support in terms of IT for banking, which more and more older people are moving to. And the simple thing of us providing that free Wi-Fi in that facility will help them deliver the solutions themselves, deliver the benefits. And I think when people start opting in to the benefits at that level, then it's much easier to have a conversation about the bigger projects like 5G or whatever they are.
Okay, great. Mark, maybe to you next.
I think traditionally Belfast is a really active community sector. I think the last count we have about 2,000 community-based organisations, right from neighbourhood level groups right through housing associations. Massive sort of community interest in the city and its challenges. Our elected councillors, many of them come from a community development background. So the active citizen is historically a big part of our city. Matching it to the challenges around innovation and particularly the application of technology is something that I suppose it's quite difficult. And I think one example recently that we've found where we were looking at the application of technologies in our public parks and open spaces. So kids hanging around public parks, potentially a risk to themselves, but a risk to others and antisocial behaviour. And traditionally the city would have used CCTV to sort of monitor activities. It's quite intrusive. And we worked with companies to see if we could make a less intrusive solution using other technologies like mobile phone, looking at mobile phone data, looking at Wi-Fi usage, not at a personal level, but looking at sort of behavioural movement of groups. Interestingly, we had a lot of pushback from citizens groups on that.
Okay.
And it actually was quite surprising to us initially. It's probably slightly naive. We thought, well, this is actually less intrusive. Why are you worried about it? But I think the problem was the groups didn't necessarily understand the
It's the
implications of the
education around
technology.
it. Yeah.
And we've learned a lot from that very quickly, that you need to engage with the citizen and the groups very early on. I think what we are in our thinking now, we engage at the problem definition level, you know,
Okay.
working with citizens on the problems, and then working through that journey through to the solutions. Otherwise, you will lose citizen trust in terms of the nature of the technology, because it can be quite obscure. So bringing citizens on that journey from challenge to solution is really important for us.
Yeah.
It's going to form a feature of our work going forward.
Yeah, and it makes them feel like they're a critical stakeholder in the process.
And
So
they are,
they're
yeah.
buying into it from that early stage, and then obviously reaping the rewards when it does come to fruition. Jerry from San Jose.
So the city of San Jose, very diverse, very participatory community with expectations that our government functions like Silicon Valley functions. When you take the advancing technology and moving agile, and you start, with the Wi-Fi and are getting Wi-Fi for everybody, and then you start moving into the next natural layers or progressions of that, start using your light poles to monitor traffic or traffic conditions, and then you think about, we can use it for pedestrian traffic and footfall and those sorts of things. You quickly start to get into we have to do community engagement because technology is now ahead of where your public is maybe comfortable with. And so privacy policy comes into play. And so we actually engaged a contractor by the name of Civic Makers to engage multiple languages, because we're 57% of our residents speak a language other than English in their household, very, very diverse community. And so we went out, had many community sessions, and then talked about what was important to our community, involved the civil rights unions as well, and really created, okay, let's start calling what are the important issues, let's frame it up in terms of principles. We still have work to do to turn that into a policy yet, but then we have had many city council meetings and invited the public in to say, okay, here's our first crack at it. What feedback do you have? And keep going. So that's how we've involved them, our community in privacy principles.
Yeah. And I think that sorry, go ahead,
What's
Paul.
really interesting as well is when we went out and engaged in the Docklands, for example, on the challenges that we want to set to try and bring forward those smart solutions. What came back through that engagement process was most likely the three things I would have selected as being the priority in that area. And so for policymakers, for elected representatives, there's a bit of affirmation that what you're hearing on the ground is what people are really feeling. And when you do it through a structured process like we've done in setting those challenges, then I think that gives more confidence to elected reps that, for example, illegal dumping was the number one issue that came out in the Docklands. That can deliver real community benefit if we have a smart challenge and a smart solution for it. And if the community themselves have put it forward, I think that transcends that problem of trying to communicate the benefits.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think just coming back to the point around multinational and denominations sitting in one city, I think obviously lots of cities have had that diversity for years. If we look at Ireland as a country, we were always the kind of emigrants rather than obviously immigrants coming in. Over the last decade, there's been a significant change. Even as MasterCard, we have 45 different nationalities working in our office now in Dublin, and that brings, again, another dynamic. You're trying to cater for everyone's preference, choice, and what they want to get from the city that they're living in, and obviously their own choices. And I think even through the conversation now, we've touched on it, but again, all of this is around partnership with the citizens, trying to drive that, and it gives us, I suppose, a nice segue into our kind of final lens around partnership. And I found a quote by Henry Ford. I'm just going to read it to make sure I do it justice, which I think really encapsulates City Possible and what obviously all of you guys that are working in this area are looking at it. And it says, coming together is the beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. And I think from a City Possible perspective, being able to take learnings from different cities rather than reinventing the wheel, starting from scratch, we've heard that from a lot of people on panels. That's the critical element, sharing what your knowledge base is around the different challenges that you faced in your market. So for the final question for the panel is really around if you could talk us through some kind of key partnerships that have really helped deliver on core initiatives around the strategy of the city, and what that's meant from an overall
Your turn to go
perspective.
first,
So maybe if we start with you, Mark.
I
A
could-
slightly different maybe lens
Yeah.
from the perspective of broader
Yeah.
engagement with universities and the city.
Well, things we were set up, as I said earlier, in 2017 to sort of prove the value of collaborative innovation with the triple helix, with industry at the universities and with government. Life comes at you very fast. We very quickly, the last 2 years, the city leaders in Belfast have been saying we need to form some kind of much more structured partnership to address some of the oncoming challenges, and particularly concerned about the disruption that technologies such as AI are going to have on the city. So a recent piece of work done by a local university suggests that up to 400,000 jobs in our city will be affected by AI over the next 10 years. That's nearly half of all jobs. And the city leaders are saying, well, we need to get our act together in terms of how we address that, whether it's on the economy or in jobs or even in the delivery of city services. And in drawing on this model of collaborative innovation, sort of the anchor institutions in the city have come together now. So we've got the 2 universities, we're a port city, so our harbour is very important, so our harbour authority, the city council, and a number of other partners have come together to say, right, we need to plan coherently around this and bring our resources together on that. Delighted to say we've successfully bid to UK government for £350 million of investment in preparing the city for that challenge and for the opportunities. So new research, centres of excellence, investment in digital infrastructure, an investment in a core digital partnership. That's about unlocking data, it's about unlocking knowledge, and it's providing access to assets. And for us, it's very quickly has become the manifestation of the sort of principles around smart city working. And over the next few years, that's going to be a major player in terms of partnership working in the city for us.
A great example of preparing yourself for what's an inevitable kind of challenge that's coming down the line.
Yep.
Maybe, Jerry, if I come to
Yeah,
you
I'm going to
next.
take it in a little different direction from a digital example to a very real problem in California and in the city of San Jose, which is homelessness. And we have a partnership actually with MasterCard. So just to give a little context, so in the city of San Jose, we rose by, our homeless population increased by 42% in the last 3 years. So we went from about 4,400 homeless to 6,200 in a period of 2 years, despite the fact that we had tried to house an additional 6,900 during that same time frame. So the amount of homeless population is just increasing. And at the same time, the encampments that are occurring throughout our city, a lot of trash was accumulating and blight starts to occur. And so you start to solve the problem, or try to solve the problem of homelessness, and you realize it's not just about housing. It's you can't really put a label on the homeless population. It's very complex, and there are a lot of issues that go into the homeless population. And so that's another population that we had to engage to learn more. And so we started with what we call the Cash for Trash program with MasterCard, where we have preloaded, or we have cards, MasterCard cards, that we pay $4 per bag for every bag that homeless populations in certain encampments throughout the city collect, and they start to remove their own blight. And then as a result of that, we start to engage with those residents and start to get at the deeper issues as well. And so this is a kind of a proof of concept project that we're doing with MasterCard right now.
Okay, great.
Actually, Jerry, you mentioned the MasterCard reminded me of the partnership that we have with the Dublin Economic Monitor. So I think in the first few months of chairing the Enterprise and Economic Development SVC, we're coming out of a period of significant retraction in economic activity, and there was a lot of debate about what was happening in the economy, but there was no independent Dublin overview of economic data. And the Dublin Economic Monitor, which was started in just 2015, it provides that, and it's a partnership with MasterCard using Spending Pulse, and it allows us to aggregate data from different places and spending patterns together, and I suppose analyse it. And it's a quarterly publication. It's both online and offline, and it allows us each quarter to pick a different theme that's impacting Dublin. And what's really interesting is that from the very early on, some of the infrastructure challenges we're experiencing now, at the very first signs of economic growth, you could see those pinching. So if national government had done anything about it, we wouldn't be in the situation we'd be in. But the point was, the economic monitor was able to predict it, and I think without that, we wouldn't have had the benefit of that knowledge, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without the partnership with Mastercard.
Great. So I think hopefully that's given you some good context around examples to help kind of drive the city engagements forward and obviously make it more responsive to the needs of the citizens there. So we've got a couple of minutes left that I might open out to the floor for any questions if there are any. Don't have to be shy. No? Okay, well then we'll give people a couple of minutes back. But I just want to thank panellists for their time, for you, the audience. I really appreciate you taking the time to come along and listen to us today, and hopefully it's given you some indication as to what's possible in your own cities. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.